But I think we're ready to kick things off. All right, so thank you everyone for joining. So excited to see 42 of us here. Maybe there'll be some more joining throughout the session. But I'm just going to intro what we're covering today. It's going to be a really, really fun workshop. So first and foremost, a little introduction to the speakers. I'm Shawn Hewat, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Wavy. We help teams with all of their company events, easy breezy team building events, whether that's social fun, wellness, or learning. And we've got a platform that helps you centralize all of that and cut out the noise that comes with event management and logistics. Really easy to run events there, seamless every time, and always happy to chat about that. But the focus for today is on preparing for Mental Health Awareness Month, which is coming up this May. And I think a big theme for today's chat will be not just celebrating and recognizing this during the month of May, but how can you make this a continuous theme in your workplace throughout the year? And to talk about this, we've got Jenn and Steve, who are the co-founders of Pause and Expand. They're one of my favorite partners that we work with at Wavy. They do sound baths, meditations, and more. So Jenn, Steve, could you introduce yourselves quickly and we'll dive into the questions.
Awesome. I'm Steve.
I'm Jenn. You probably figured that out.
Yeah, exactly. We're a couple, both in business and in life. We're from Toronto, although we're in Sedona today. And what gets us out of bed was the creation of this company and bringing wellness programming into companies. So we both came from the corporate side. And at one point when we were dating, we said, this would be really cool if they had this at work. And Jenn actually started doing it at her work. And then we said, let's get into it. So you're going to learn a lot today about exactly what we believe in doing, why we find purpose in bringing this kind of programming into companies.
I love that. And we're going to learn a lot more as we go through the session, but quick agenda for everyone. There's 4 parts to it, and I promise it's going to be simple, and we're going to stick to time. First, we're going to do Q&A with Jenn and Steve. What we're really going to focus on here is how you can create space and set up a foundation for wellness programming in your company. That's something that a lot of you asked about when signing up for the event. The second is ideas for wellness-focused events. And third, and I think this is where we got the most questions, is how can you make it inclusive for everyone on your team, no matter where they're located. So that's gonna be where we take the conversation. We'll open it up to Q&A from the audience. I know a lot of you submitted questions when signing up for the event, so thank you so much for doing that. But if you've got questions, please put them in the chat and we'll address them after our discussion. From there, we're going to do a 15-minute demo of Pause and Expand's sound bath and meditation. This should give you a good sneak peek into what their experience is like. And we've got a really exciting offer to share with you after that demo. And it may be getting a free demo with Jenn and Steve for your company and really customizing the experience to your own culture. So without ado, let's jump into the topic. Now, I know mental health is such a large topic, and I just want to take a moment to share that there are great resources for learning and education out there that cover all facets of mental health. In Canada, we'd like to direct you to the Canadian Mental Health Association, CMHA. CAMH here in Toronto is also a great one to look at. And something interesting from CMHA is that their theme for Mental Health Awareness Month this year is My Story. So saying collectively and individually, we all have multiple layers and stories that make us who we are. And everyone, while each year in Canada, 1 in 5 people suffer from mental health illness or mental health issues, 5 in 5 of us all have mental health. And I think the theme this year is around really recognizing that you have to take care of your mental health, similar to how you take care of your physical health. And I think that's a really exciting theme to go off of. Today, what we're going to focus on is supporting mental health and employee well-being at work, because that's the area we work in. And it's also a big topic, one that's closely tied to company culture. There are many things that go into company culture: your vision, mission, and values, your leadership, how you retain, advance your people, all the programming that goes into that, and then the practices that can support culture. And I think that's really where Wavy and Pause and Expand come in. So we'll really keep the conversation focused on there. We are experts in building community and belonging at work, at improving employee connection, and really just helping humans get to know the other humans that they work with. So I think that's what we can promise to deliver on in our conversation today. And our goal is that you can walk away feeling refreshed and grounded in your day. And that from this conversation, we can spark some inspiration for how your team can get together to recognize Mental Health Awareness Month and how you can continue that practice as you move forward in the business, not just for one day or 1 month, but throughout the year as an ongoing program. Did I sum that up well enough, Jen and Steve? Anything
that was
to add?
perfect. Please come to all of our things that we do, by the way.
Great.
Those who know me know I love to MC. It's my favorite thing. So let's dive right in. And like I said, we'd love participation from the audience. We do have some questions to ask you so we can tailor it to what you're seeing in your workplace. But let's jump into our first topic, which is all about how do we create space and really create an environment for wellness at work. Jen and Steve, I know we wanted to ask the audience a couple questions to better inform this one. So I'm going to run the first poll here. And if everyone can take a moment to answer that, it's, do you currently have a budget for wellness events? I know it's an interesting time right now, economy-wise, an interesting time budget-wise, and that this is probably going to be a bit of a varied answer. I'd love to know in the chat, has this changed in 2023 compared to previous years? If anyone wants to chime in there, that would be interesting to note as well. Go. And just a reminder to those in the audience to kindly keep on mute. That would be great. All right, I think we've got this poll closed. So let's share these results here. All right, as we can see, do you currently have budget for wellness events? We've got a good 65% there that has a budget they're working with. So it is good to note we've got some folks in the audience that are working with a very limited or no budget at all, unfortunately. So this should help us. This should help guide the conversation today.
Right.
Love to see it in the audience. We've got some people who are with CMHA. So we'll be following up there. And then we've got one more question to ask the group. So how do you feel wellness programming is going at your company right now? Again, this will help guide kind of what stage we're at in our conversation. We're getting some pretty goods. We've got a couple of helps with a sad face.
We're here to help you. We're
here to help. Would be curious to know if those clicking help or not well are also tied to the budget being very limited or all.
Yeah.
We've got some pretty goods. No one's been brave enough to answer amazing just yet. So we've got some work to do. But we've got, 41% feeling pretty good about wellness programming at the company, 38% neutral, and then over 20% not well or help. So thank you everyone for taking part in this. These are really interesting results and can help us help you in tailoring the conversation today. So there we go. Here's the results for everyone who wants to see poll number 2. As you read that, let's get into that first question. So how do you establish a new mental health initiative at work? This was a big one that we got from people signing up.
So when we talk about our experience, and that's really all we can do, we've worked with about 90 companies in the 2 years that we created Pause and Expand. And what we've noticed is the personality of every company is different. But we've noticed that if we use certain language, it can help get the message across to start to build whatever you need to build in that moment. So the language, let's start with the language. Physical health and mental health. If you think about physical health, it makes it easier to understand what we're talking about with mental health. Because mental health is being used in a very broad way right now. So with physical health, we look at it as like, is it important to work your physical body? That's a yes or a no. And we noticed in the 80s, this is when they started to put gyms into companies. So we noticed this 45-year gap between physical health and mental health from a working out perspective. Let's keep it there. There is also when we think about mental health as it relates to mental illness, and there's been a lot of work to remove the stigma of talking about mental illness, that it's okay to talk about that. But we're concentrating today on the health of working out your mind, the thing that you use the most, more than even your physical body. So when we think about that, how do you create a roadmap for success? The first way is to understand the personality of your company. You start to look at how many people, are at your company. How do you work? Hybrid versus, I would probably say it's rare to find all in person these days.
Yeah, for sure.
Is it mostly remote? And we'll go into a little bit of this more. What is the appetite for programming? Do people even understand the idea of working out the mind? And as you start to assess some of these questions, you can start to then tailor make, how do you bring this programming into your company? How do you start it? And you all are ambassadors. We've learned that there is no way for us to get into a company without an ambassador. That's the stage we're at.
Yeah.
So we foresee a future where, just like there's a running club, there could be a meditation club. Just like at lunchtime, you're going to see your doctor and everyone says, great. Just at lunchtime, you can go access the benefits that might be there. But for now, we've noticed that most of the mental wellness programming has been grouped under, let's talk about benefits. We're trying to bring it out of that to saying, what are you doing day to day about working out your mind?
And so, yeah, what you were also alluding to is you're really kind of taking a landscape of what is the appetite for mental wellness programming in the organization? How much is it talked about? How open is the organization in terms of vulnerable conversations, collaboration? The other thing that we've really noticed is you also want to have a cross-functional team. So some companies, some of you may have employee resource groups that you actually work with, but those are incredible because actually then you get people from across the entire organization versus just it's sitting in the HR department or the culture and engagement team, for example.
We've also noticed that leadership often isn't there. Let's just call it out, but that's okay because middle management is really driving these initiatives. So creating the time, the big issue we found is, how do you create time to have teams get together and actually work out together?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think if you take it to the methodology of how you build a sustainable community, which is what we're all trying to do here within our organizations, someone, maybe it's you who's listening, who's joined in today, has to spark the flame and has to get it started. That's how every community starts. And that could be small. That could be doing something with your people and culture team or with a committee or with a department and proving how impactful it is, then to do something a bit bigger or to get another department or team to do it the next time. But someone has to spark the flame to bring these initiatives forward. And there's ways to do it in a cheap and cheerful way or in a small way to get started. From there, you have to stoke the fire. You've got to keep it going and get consistent with it. And I think that's what we'll dive into as we get to our other topics for today. And thank you, Shawn, for writing in the chat. Ask any questions as we go along. We're super happy to be interactive with this session. But I think this is a good one to piggyback on is, how do you ask the right questions? How do you start to engage in this type of conversation, especially if you've got a culture or perhaps a dynamic with leadership that may feel a bit uncomfortable talking about mental health and really prioritizing that in the workplace?
Yeah. One of the things that, working in the corporate world for so long, I was part of the marketing team. And one of the things that I really noticed within the marketing group is there was a safety within each of the sub groups of the organization. So whether it's the marketing team, your sales team, your operations team. So one of the things I noticed when I was leading my teams is to be able to have conversations within your smaller groups can actually help to spark more conversation. So, if you were to go out and do a survey to the entire organization, you may have hesitancy because people are worried about sharing their name or what their perspectives are. When you start to build some of those relationships in your smaller group organizations, marketing or sales or operations, you start to be able to foster some of those conversations. So it's really more of like a manager to the person that's underneath them, essentially, to help sort of spark that conversation. That's one of the ways that I've really, really felt it can be helpful.
You should also talk about how you started, because Pause and Expand actually is the experiment from a company sound bath at Wattpad, right? When you were there, you just picked up, you found a couple friends at work and said, let's just do this at lunch.
Yeah.
And you brought the sound bowls. I remember seeing the picture in the cafeteria and you said, whoever wants to show up, show up.
Yeah.
And literally it's at that level of grassroots that we're talking. Sometimes when you try to engage too many people in the beginning with this kind of programming, it feels unsafe.
Yeah.
We're talking about creating safety in an area that a lot of people feel unsafe. So start with two. You had two people.
I had two people in my working meditation group that I had. And it was an experiment. It was something that I was just curious about helping the team initially when we went into the pandemic. And Slowly over time, we started to build more members, but I think that's the opportunity, is just allowing people to have it be voluntary, have it be fun, have it be engaging, and start small, because it takes time to get ambassadors within the organization that then bring other people on board.
Yeah, that's, first of all, awesome story on how you got started. But no, I think that's such a good point. And there's free or do-it-yourself ways you can get started with things like this.
Yeah.
The game, We're Not Really Strangers, great question prompts for having vulnerable and open conversations about emotions and about how you're feeling. I think we got Ali in the chat saying they use the Insight Timer app.
Yeah.
Like there's creative ways you can get started, and then of course bringing in professional hosts and bringing in that facilitated conversation or experience really takes it to the next level. But I think that's covered how you kind of set the foundation and get started with things. And I think the themes, takeaways for everyone here is grassroots, test it out with a small group, really prove the value and grow it from there. It really spreads organically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to add to that, the way in which you start to get budgets is when people start to say, oh, why aren't we doing more of this?
Yeah.
That's what we've noticed too. So a lot of our work is just to get the spark started. And then people feel it. And a big part of this work is not talking about it. So lunch and learns are great. We don't do them. We actually want to go and train you. So that's like, you can do that yourself. The Insight Timer is a really smart idea. Sit in a boardroom, get on virtually, share your screen, and just be there together. That idea of doing the work is what mental wellness practices are. They're not just talking about looking at it and understanding it. You have to work out, lift the weight.
Yeah, so for sure.
Love that. So let's dive right into ideas for wellness programming. Jen, I think this question is for you. What ideas do you have for employee wellness events that are free?
Yeah, so kind of building off what we were just talking about, I think one of the ways that I've seen it happen, and I've seen it in multiple organizations, actually, the ones that we work with through Pause and Expand, and then when I was also working at Wattpad and in the marketing team there, there's a lot of people in your organization that are probably very passionate about this, but maybe don't talk about it publicly to the people they work with. Because there's this interesting moment where we feel we have to keep mental wellness separate from the work. And that's actually changing, right? As we know. So there's probably a lot of people in your organization either that teach yoga or do breath work or do different activities, maybe movement practices. And so, it's not necessarily about saying, we have to get people to be doing extra work. But if people are passionate about those topics, they'll likely want to lead it, like I did it at Wattpad, right? No one told me to do it. I just actually was really passionate because it's something that I'm really interested in supporting people with. So that's one opportunity. The other way that we were also able to build a lot of traction when I was at Wattpad was we had a Slack channel that was dedicated to mental well-being. So we called it Club Meditation. And it was an opportunity for people to come in and start to share resources. And then that actually sparked ideas for people to say, oh, why don't we all get together and do a meditation group? Or I'm really interested in Atomic Habits, this book by James Clear that I've been reading. I'd love to do a 30-day challenge with whoever's interested in doing it. So you start to kind of get people's interest in just wanting to better themselves. And then that sparks a movement within the organization. But interestingly, it doesn't always happen at the top level. So if you were to, organize a free event, you may not have as many people as if it actually happens organically within the organization.
Yeah.
So something to think about, even for your managers in your organization, to ask their teams, hey, is there anything anyone's really interested in leading that you'd love to start to try to do? Does anyone use any of the apps that you'd love to try to start doing a challenge? And just start with these little small, they're kind of like tests that you're doing that then actually build into movements that then build into wellness programming.
We should also, there are some companies that we've worked with that jumped in day one, started a meditation program with us and are getting, 20% turnout of the company.
Yeah.
20% is a great number. There are those cultures out there too. So we don't want to just think that everyone's struggling to even get 3 people together.
Good point.
We've worked with some
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's changing, that we're noticing that this new generation are really accepting of, I will be more vulnerable at work.
Mhm.
I will talk to each other virtually because this is all I've ever known about work.
Yeah.
So we're really in those early innings of understanding how to build the programming. But you may be at a company that you can jump right in and go, we've got the budget. We want to do this once a week or once a month, and let's just go and take advantage of it. This is something
I
that's
love
here.
that.
Yeah.
And I think it also speaks to the general trend I've seen with team building and culture initiatives, even just over the past few years. But I think we've come from a place where we say, well, how do teams get together? It's social fun. It's happy hours after work. It's rooted in alcohol and food. And over the past few years, we've seen that change so much to team building also being about wellness and learning together and being vulnerable and getting to know each other in a bit of a deeper way, because ultimately that's what team building and team events are for. It's so that people can feel more connected, so that they can trust each other more, work better together, and feel that sense of belonging at work. That's what everyone's trying to strive to do. And it turns out a lot of wellness focused programming, creative focused programming, learning focus is really great at doing that too. Social fun is great. You've got to celebrate, you've got to weave that in, but this is an important part of the narrative too. And it doesn't have to be in its own wellness bucket. It can be how teams connect and build community in general. It happens to be centered in wellness because that's what people are interested in.
Great point.
So, okay, let's address the elephant in the room. What about professionally hosted events? This is what you two do, what you two specialize in. I know in the Wavy marketplace, we've got a bunch of different things, a bunch of different events and amazing partners focus on the wellness side, but we so love working with you two. So let's take this opportunity to talk a bit about what your hosted events are like. What are the different themes and formats that you focus on?
I'll go back and I'll start with doing the work. I think that I was really excited that we figured out a way to do the work virtually, and that we wouldn't have a business if we couldn't do what we're going to show you today. So we actually want you to feel something when you do mental wellness work, just like you would feel it when you do physical activity. The second thing is, can we program for where you're at? So sometimes it's a one-off. You'll bring us in to do almost like, what is meditation? Here, let me show you what meditation is, versus we've got clients that we go in on a weekly basis and we worked up with them to that. So we like going in and working with an ambassador such as yourself and figuring out what is the plan to moving more mental wellness programming into the company. And it's not just about us. There's a lot of different ways, a lot of different modalities. Like, what are the different modalities that you would say work within a company?
I mean, outside of sound and meditation, you mean?
Well, we do meditation, we do sound, right?
I mean, I think if you're building a wellness program, you want it to be robust in terms of having different experiences, right? So you'd have yoga, you'd have potentially movement, you'd have sound and meditation, you'd have different things. But to the point that you're making about the work that we do, I think it is really like meeting you where you are. So sometimes that looks like, we have a lot of teams that have us come in and do virtual retreats with them. So you're doing a virtual offsite. You bring us in to do your pause during your time together. We do weekly, bi-weekly, monthly programming with certain clients. Sometimes it is like a lunch and learn style, but it's more the fact that we're actually going in and doing the work with you. So we're actually getting you into the experience to do it, which is the difference between, imagine going to a gym and your trainer sits with you in front of the equipment and says, okay, here's all the things that you can do at the gym. And then that's the end of your session.
But don't touch the equipment.
Yeah, exactly. You'd never get a workout.
Right.
So we're really passionate about actually bringing you in. And what's super cool about the things that we've done, and I actually had no idea that this would happen, is you end up getting people sharing way more vulnerably because they're in the experience together. So when we ask people how they're feeling, the days of saying, oh, I'm pretty good, or I'm doing okay, those are gone. People are a lot more vulnerable now and sharing what they're feeling. And that's why we're so passionate about taking action and actually taking you into a meditation or a sound bath.
Corporate retreats are good.
You shared a really interesting story on this the other day of the team you're going in, they wanted to focus the meditation on being creative and using the left side of your brain at work. But what happened when you got into that session, Jenn?
Yeah, so it's a really big testament to why we do things live. So yeah, to what Shawn was saying, had this meditation topic, was already planned weeks ago, asked them how they were all feeling. And the words were overwhelmed, tired, stressed. They had this big review that was coming up across the organization, and everyone was basically really stressed out. So I said, you know what? In this moment, we need to shift. So I actually took them through an experience to help them work through anxiety. And we just breathed, and I helped them think about what they were worried about and let that go. And they left feeling way, way more calm, more peaceful, more ready to tackle the rest of the day. So,
and let's speak to the idea of, we hear this a lot. We don't need you pause and expand because we have a Calm membership. We love Calm. However, there's a reason why we do the work live.
Yeah.
And I think we want to influence the narrative around, when you want people to work out, do you give them a membership and go do it? Or do you say, hey, here's the facility, here's the room, and here's the trainer, come work out with us?
Yeah.
And that's the difference of doing live work. And it's not really talked about a lot, but that's a really important part of a program, is not just expecting people to go do it on their own, but to say, hey, and use the resources in a different way. Yeah. And that's what we are trying to explain to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you've got the collective or shared experience with others that you work with, it does lead to a more meaningful bond. You know, you're hopping into that weekly all hands, or you're hopping into that meeting. Oh, you were at that event too. I actually did this after, or what did you think of this? And it sparks so much conversation, just knowing that you've had that shared experience and taking that time to be vulnerable and to reflect and pause together. It makes such an impact.
Yeah.
I just want to be cognizant of time, because we want everyone to experience your sound bath today. So I'm gonna jump ahead a bit to the tactics. I think everyone here is hopefully aligned on how we set the foundation, some ideas for putting programming in place. But the realities of all our workplaces are quite complicated. We've got people remote, we've got people around the world, we've got people in office, sometimes in multiple offices. And reality is people are here, there, and everywhere. So how can we make programs successful? And I'm using the word program on purpose because a lot of the questions we got are, how can we make this meaningful more than just like acknowledging or just checking off the box of saying, hey, we did something for Mental Health Awareness Month?
Yes.
How can we, let's start there, and then we'll get into the logistics of like, what do you do with hybrid distributed teams? But first, like, how can it be more than just ticking the box that you've done something for this month or this day?
Yeah.
It has to be meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think that's the ambassador's role, is to say, okay, we've done this, but what's the next step? So the meaningful piece, we like to use the words easy and effective. So for teams that are hybrid, it needs to be easy, and meaning you can get to it easy.
Yeah.
And it needs to be effective. So when we zoom out at what we're doing, right sizing things is very important. We're big believers in this doesn't need to take a long time. You're going to see in 15 minutes, 10 minutes, what you can get. So finding the right block of time, we don't like going over a half hour with teams, and then make it easy so that they aren't feeling like, I can't do this. And that's also part of why you want to work with a professional that has that energy with your team and can use the word energy and not freak them out, right?
Yeah,
you need to have the science as part of this work. And so whatever professional you work with, the professional needs to read the room. That's a really important part. If you can't read the room and understand where is the place that people aren't feeling safe, you can't create that container.
Mm-hmm.
And what mental wellness needs to do is create containers of safety.
Yeah.
You're in the role of creating containers of safety for your companies.
Yeah. The other thing I was just going to say too is, and Shawn and I talked about this before, when we were prepping for some of the questions we were going to ask, but I think one of the things too is the reality is a lot of you are probably, if you have a budget, it's being used during these specific times of the month, right? So you've got Mental Health Awareness Month coming up. You may have Pride Month coming up, and you have initiatives about that coming up in the next month. One of the things that we were talking about is use this month to try some things, test some things out, right? So, find a time of day, if it's lunchtime, if it's 9 a.m, that you can try something out and see how many people come. Ask people what time they'd want things to happen. Ask people what types of initiatives they'd want to have, and use that as almost like a testing ground to then see, okay, you know what, this one really worked well. Let's continue that on for the month of June and see how that goes.
And it takes time.
It totally does.
Our biggest client, who we're on a weekly time frame with, it took 8 months to get them to that place. And we were working at one time a month.
Yeah.
Then it went to twice a month, and they build more and more community. They didn't have a budget for it. And then the community there said, no, we need this a lot more. Leadership said, okay. So it took time. And that, I think 8 months was even relatively quick. So, yeah.
And then I was just going to say quickly, and then giving people the opportunity to have recordings, right? So that they don't have to show up all at the same time. So that, you know, they can listen to it another time. They don't feel like they're missing out, because a lot of you are on different time zones as well, right? So
pick a central time.
I'm going to take that moment to break the fourth wall. If you're watching this recording in the future, thank you. Thank you for watching. It's great to do experiences async, and I'm glad to have you here. You always every Zoom recording, because, you know, people who are watching those, you recognize them. But I so love that. And I think a really important part of making these initiatives meaningful is really hearing how it's impacted employees and what they'd like to do in the future. Feedback. We talk about it all the time at Wavy. You know, if you're doing an event like this through Wavy, you'll get feedback after, both quantitative and qualitative, that will say, I think I was reading one of your event feedback pages the other day, and it was like, we need more of this. And it's employees actually saying that after it, or I'd love to do something like this more often. So gathering those insights from your team and sharing those across the org with leadership to really show the proof is here. People feel more connected after this experience. They say it's positive for our culture. And look at these comments. They're asking to do more of this. It's making them feel better at work, taking that break in their day, doing something with their colleagues, with their team that's not day-to-day work. It's making a positive impact. So that really helps to move these initiatives forward too. So
the other thing I was just going to say too, Shawn, about that is really the idea, you know, we've seen things getting booked where there's already a standing meeting in place. So many of you probably already have like a Monday or Tuesday all hands meeting. Eventually that's where it gets to, right? Where there's no meetings booked during that time. So people actually don't feel, well, I can't go to this because my boss is in this other meeting and I'm going to look silly if I'm like taking a break and meditating, right? So you want to just make it accessible and safe for people to know that it's okay to go. The time is here for you, and there's actually no conflict. So it makes it really easy for you to show up.
100%. Just so we have enough time for audience Q&A, I'm going to ask the next few questions as just rapid fire scenarios. I think they're scenarios that people here probably have. I've got an office in Toronto, an office in Vancouver, and a big pool of my team remote, and I want to do something like a sound bath and meditation. How do we execute it?
Find the time that works in between both time zones.
Both time zones, okay.
Or book two. But most of the time we're finding that for that kind of situation, we're doing a 12 o'clock noon. So we're hitting 9 o'clock Vancouver, we're hitting 12 o'clock Eastern time. And even some people who are in the East Coast can come.
Yeah. And something I've seen work well for even more globally distributed teams. I'm going to give a shout out to Achievers here in the crowd, but they've got, you know, people all around the world. So I've seen them book multiple sessions. And even if you're not across the world, but you'd prefer to do this in the evening or in the morning, it gives employees choice. And I think that's such an important piece in hybrid or flexible work. And we got a lot of questions about participation. Make it voluntary and give people choice. People will opt in if this is something that's going to add value to their day. I think we need to move away as a whole from measuring the success of events as how many people showed up to what was the impact and what was the feedback and what am I hearing from my team? Because if I showed up, but it was forced and I didn't really want to be there and I wanted to do something else, is that even meaningful engagement? I don't think so. So I think making it voluntary and giving people choice is great. What about you? I know you folks do some in-person programming as well. What would you suggest for teams that want to bring you to in person, but they've also got people who aren't in the office?
Interestingly enough, we've been used by companies to get people back in the office as an incentive. Set the bowls up in a common area, invite people back in, and it's a way for them to communally connect.
Yeah.
So that's another way for someone's culture building that way.
But you definitely want to have like, you want to focus the people that are in person, really let them be there. And because it's an amazing moment for connection. So you would basically want to do 2 events. You do one in person and then you do a separate one virtually. Don't try to connect the hybrid and the virtual, because then people have FOMO, right? It's like, oh, I'm not there. I'm not getting the full experience. And then you kind of miss the whole point of why you're doing it. So to keep them separate for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the most, that's the most inclusive, that's the most inclusive way to do things. If you've got a hybrid team, like for those who would either prefer to take part remotely or cannot take part in person, give them a experience that's just as high quality, has just as much importance as the in-person one, and give people choice in how they'd like to participate. The other great thing about experiences like this is it can be recorded, and you can give folks the choice to take part asynchronous too. They can access the recording after. So really seeing it as a theme, hey, you know, we want to get together to encourage everyone to take a pause, take a break during their day, and focus on wellness. But we're giving you some choice in how to do that. And success comes out of the theme as a whole, not just participation in one format or event.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then we'll do one more question here before opening it up to the audience. How do we just encourage engagement and participation if we're hosting an event like this?
Honestly, I think we got to make it fun. We got to make this stuff more fun. I think one of the things that's challenging about mental wellness initiatives is they seem like they're so serious and they're always so heavy. They don't have to be that. You can be fun, you can be engaging. We work with teams when we're running events as well to just put fun little tidbits of information out on Slack. So get them kind of curious about what it is that you're doing. Give them information on why it's helpful and why it's important for them. There's a big education piece in this, in addition to it being fun. So if you take the education piece and like, this is actually why it could really help you, make it super easy, and then make it fun so that people actually do it as a shared event. It can be something that you do, you know, and then you talk about, you know, what did you see? What did you experience? What was that like for you?
Take the woo-woo out it. Do the left brain information as well too. It's you know, we always
got to bring in the science to get people to come. Otherwise, it's like, what is this?
Because the engineers really really relate to it. You know, when we can explain things from the science point of view, our left brains become safe and they go, okay, I'll listen. You know, I'll quiet my voice now. And we speak directly to that. That's another thing is don't be afraid to speak to the left side of it and say, hey, I remember one leader told us this. He's like, and he taught us this. He's like, there's a benefit to the bottom line. There's a clear benefit with more focused, more creative, less stressed people. Speak to that. Right.
For sure.
Love that. Now, before we dive into the demo of your sound bath, are there any questions from the audience? I'll give a moment. Ask them in the chat or raise your hand if you'd like to ask something out loud. Questions for Steve and Jen, questions about getting ready for Mental Health Awareness Month, questions about Wavy, all are welcome. Otherwise, we can jump right into the demo. A moment here. I mean, maybe we've addressed a lot of them. Everyone did submit a question when joining the event, and that's how we formatted our Q&A. So thank you. If you've got a question, we are going to stick around after this. So what we're going to do now is jump into the sound bath. And we're going to take about 10 minutes to do that. And then we'll be here after for any lingering questions. Just in case you have to jump off after the recording, I do want to share with you right now. We've got a pretty cool offer for all of you joining in today. So for anyone who's interested, you can head to Wavy's marketplace to book a 15-minute demo with Pause and Expand for your company. You could use this time to showcase the value of their experience to your team, showcase a little bit of the experience to get more traction, and then ideally book a full session. Or you could use this time to have a consult with Steve and Jen on how wellness and wellness programming is going in your org today, where the biggest pain points are, so they can really customize the experience to your culture and to your needs when you do book a full session. So you can head there to book it. We'll share more details after, but I think let's jump in. Let's jump into the demo.
So grab your
Okay,
headphones.
awesome. Yeah, grab your
So
headphones.
this is it's important just to grab them because it means you'll be at the show versus watching the show. And you know what? As we're live, I didn't tell you that I'm going to ask this question. Type into the chat. I always do this to her.
Plot twist.
Yeah. Type into the chat how you want to feel by the end of the day today. Just type the word in to your
Yes.
to the chat right now. What would be the optimal word or words of how you'd like to feel at the end of day today? And just see where we're at.
Amazing. Okay. Wonderful. So I'm going to take you through a 5-minute meditation, and then we're going to do the sound bath. And this is a meditation actually that I do for myself on a regular basis. So it's a really, really good idea just to help kind of set you up for your day and just give you the direction of where you actually want to go. So everyone's going to turn their screens off just so we can all be in our own little bubble of space.
We're going to do a sound check. Just let us know that you can hear this. Yes?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, cool. We're going to turn our video off as well. All right. So I'm just going to have you just gently close your eyes. And wherever you're sitting right now, just notice whatever you're sitting on and just feel your body right now sitting on that chair. And just feeling your feet on the ground underneath you, dropping your shoulders, noticing any tension that you're holding right now in your neck or shoulders. And just starting to connect with the feeling of your breath. And so all you're doing is just noticing the sensation of the air coming in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just imagining right now the only thing you need to focus on is your breathing. You're already doing great. And the biggest thing we always say about meditation is there's actually nothing that you can do wrong. So all you're doing is just noticing what you're thinking about and bringing yourself back. And so I'm going to ask you 2 questions in this experience. And then we're going to figure out how to get there. The first question is, how are you feeling right now in this moment? Just bring those words into your mind. How are you feeling? Just seeing whatever those words are, how you're feeling right now. Noticing any distracting sounds in the room that you're in. And just taking a nice big deep breath. Now I want you to fast forward to that word that you typed into the chat of how you want to feel at the end of this day. Accomplished, calm, relaxed, peaceful, energized, and just see yourself right now at the end of this day, getting into bed, having that feeling. Imagine what it would feel like. And see it in your mind. And now, what needs to happen between now and then in order for you to get to that place? What is one small thing you could do today to support yourself in getting to that place by the end of the day? And just notice whatever is coming to your mind. And as we move into the sound bath, allow yourself to just be with the sound. There's nothing you need to do except breathe. See yourself at the end of this day getting to that place. And what you need to do, small steps to make that happen. Breathe into the tones and enjoy this time for yourself. And just seeing if you can stay with your breath right now and the sounds. And just take a nice big deep breath. Maybe rolling your shoulders, your neck. And as you come back, what is one of the things that you can do to support yourself to get to that place by the end of the day? Type it into the chat. What came to your mind? One thing that you can do between now and tonight to get to that place you want to get to, that feeling. And as you come back, just Type into the chat whatever came to you. Get outside, be with nature, work out, running. I love this. Yes, movement. Crystal, I love that. Giving yourself gratitude. Tidy your apartment. Yes, I love that, Callum. Go for a walk. Getting a manicure. Ooh, yay, I love that. Taking a break to play with my dog. Positive self-talk. Taking time to pause. Taking a walk with my kids. I love that, Leah. So even as you're reading these, notice the connection that's already happening in this group. There's an accountability that suddenly happened in this tiny little moment that we've had together of what each of us want to do to get to that place that we want to get to by the end of the day. And this is how that works. When we do this live, we're here meeting you right in this moment.
I was even saying to Jenn in the sound bath, this could be its own community. The people that have gathered today, who are most likely facing some of the same challenges, this could be the start of a community that could be sharing information.
Totally.
And that's what I think is interesting about the work we're doing, is we don't really know the answers of what the next step is until it's like, oh, it's right here, right now.
For sure. Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing. Shawn, we can talk about that.
I love that. Well, this actually was shared through our community called Culture Reef. So if you're wondering what that little logo was when you registered for the event today, Culture Reef is our community at Wavy for people teams, people and culture leaders, people managers who are really trying to drive this change forward with their team. Yeah. Thank you so much to everyone who stuck around, who was able to take part in that demo. I hope it brought a pause and a moment of calm and reflection to your day. I know it definitely did for me. I'm visiting Toronto right now, running around from event to event. So it was nice to take part in it. I loved it. Yeah, there is a way to join Culture Reef. We're going to send a follow-up email to everyone who's here today, as well as everyone who registered. What you're going to get with that is the link to book a demo with Pause and Expand. I'm sharing that in the chat right now. So if you want to do that, there's the big link right there to book your 15-minute demo with Pause and Expand. You'll get to experience how the Wavy platform works. If you haven't done so already, you'll get to spend more time with Jenn and Steve, which I'm always jealous of and I always want to do more of. And hopefully bring an initiative like this into your company for not just Mental Health Awareness Month, but for every month after that too. I really, really enjoyed the experience and enjoyed getting the chance to interview and ask you both a bunch of questions about this space. And we're here for any lingering questions. If you're going to get back to your day and hopefully go have lunch or whatever time it may be for you, please go enjoy that and we'll chat with you soon. But we'll stick around for a couple extra minutes here for any questions in the chat or if anyone wants to speak up. Yeah. I'll end the recording there too. So breaking the fourth wall. Thank you for tuning in.